I think it's the same question as to how does the dollar actually attain its value? It's the question of money. That, for instance, are we saying that we're trusting this foreign entity called the United States of America to actually claim some sort of value to a fungible token, meaning that, for instance, if you give $1, you can actually get $1 back, right? So the thing is that with non-fungible tokens, it's there's a whole lot of things that actually play out, but I'll probably keep it very simple. Is this the fact that there's a social contract that I think one person is believing that, for instance, when they pay for something, they actually get a certain amount of value back, right? So this has been something that's been very heavy in the gaming industry, and it's kind of odd that the gaming industry has been very against NFTs. Not to say that everybody in the gaming industry is all about it, but you think of like yeah, but like for instance, you think of like Candy Crush and all this other stuff. You pay for these tokens, they have no redeemable value just in the game itself. So when it comes to NFTs, you can actually accrue that value across different platforms. So there's that interoperability. As to the value, it's all subjective. I still necessarily say that it's the same thing. For instance, just because you buy a Picasso doesn't mean that you actually own the copyrights to the Picasso. You just own the actual artwork. The family or even Picasso, if you're still around, will most likely still retain that. And with NFTs, to keep it very simple, is that it's a digital signature. Just behind me, even though it's a blurred background, is that I do have a few books which have actually been autographed. The simplistic analysis would be, what is the difference between you watching a show on, because most of us are actually in Africa, on DSTV compared to actually watching a pirated copy? Not much, right? But if, for instance, you were to try and sell a duplicate of that same recording, in a sense, you can think of an NFT being a signature. So let's just say, I'm just trying to think of any particular artist that actually just comes to mind, Denzel Washington. So let's just imagine that Denzel Washington had actually put a physical signature on a DVD copy of one of his movies, right? Maybe John Q and the likes, right? That probably has more value compared to if you just go into a shop and buy it and it's just another copy. So that's literally what NFTs are actually trying to resolve. As to how they actually accrue their value, it's just very subjective. The thing that actually works in my favor is that it's all meme culture. As in, I think anybody who doesn't know what a meme is, I'll just simplify it, is that we've got our genes. So obviously here, we all are as humans. If, for instance, you necessarily find a partner, you can procreate and you necessarily have offspring, right? So that's necessarily how you look at genes, where you actually pass on the species in one from another. With meme culture, it's the passing of ideas, right? So if you think of William Shakespeare, do you remember his offspring or do you remember his plays? I think most people actually remember him for Romeo and Juliet compared to, I don't know what the lineage is right now. So that's literally it. And it's like a tie-in with finance. And when it comes to the accruing of that value, it's primarily just subjective. As in, I'll even talk of the fact of right now, it's very speculative. We can probably go into the pricing and the likes later on, but I tell you that it's very speculative, that when it comes to the valuing of anything, it's very subjective as to where people are. So I'm a South African, I reside in Africa. I might actually have a different value compared to like a European who might be, let's just say, a Romanian. So that'll be East Europe in terms of how they actually view the arts, right? So it's the same thing, even when we talk of a dollar is just on the basis that America has actually been able to get everybody to be convinced that this is a store of value, that you can actually use this in any part of the world and people can actually recognize it, right? But if I were to actually use like a Zim dollar, as in, I don't know what the situation is there, right? But not a lot of people know about Zimbabwe. If I were to just like chuck in a random country like Myanmar, maybe some people might actually know about Myanmar, but that currency doesn't hold that particular value. So you can actually see that there's all this power play in one form or another. And I think when it comes to the accruing of the value is that I think it's very subjective. It's the same thing. If I were to take baby pictures of my son or my daughter, they might not necessarily accrue the same value compared to a person who might necessarily be going through a different situation in their life, right? So that's just my take when it comes to how value is actually attached to NFTs, or I think, at least in my subjective view of art overall.
he had mentioned, Daliso had mentioned about the power play, the politics of the arts. And I do think that actually plays a very significant role in how we are going to eventually continue to value NFTs. Right now, it's almost free for all. There are no guidelines per se.
Right.
People, we've had people of no solid background in arts making quite a whole lot of money from the NFTs. But then there are structures, there are institutions that guide, how art is done, how art is marketed, how it is presented across the world. And I dare say that those institutions are very mindful of the happenings in the NFT field. On the scene right now in terms of NFTs. And I've seen a few large museums, big museums in Europe, thinking about how they can incorporate the NFTs into their collections and all of that. And what would happen with that would be that they now play the role of who sanctions the value of NFTs in future. And I think...
Okay, I would have to disagree with you, Dr. Tunde. And the reason why I'm disagreeing with you is because I don't think it's something that's going to happen in the future. I think it's something that's happening right now.
Okay.
I think
my
you're
point
quite right
is,
when you say that it's gotten to a point where people who don't have art experience or skill are able to benefit from the NFT industry. Let me put it right now. And it goes to the question as to whether, as to who or what determines the value of a piece of art. But the argument of the new school, I would put it, is that the whole point of NFTs is to disrupt an aged institution that has held that power, the power to determine the value of a piece of art, or to determine even whether a work constitutes art or not. A lot of artists today who are benefiting from the NFT community would want to say or argue or believe that the fact that NFTs have made it possible for anybody any individual who has access to determine the value of their work, or even determine whether their work is art or not, by putting it on the blockchain and therefore declaring it a piece of art and putting it up for sale, in itself is part of the solution or resolution that NFTs has brought.
I agree with you on that. And I think that's actually happening right now. However, I think it's a temporary measure. I think it's going to be around for just a while, long enough for those who are quick enough to, make their earnings from it. I think, because I'm on several platforms, museum platforms, and these discussions are coming up. People are actually looking into that already. And people are already, the museums and galleries are already looking at how to control this, because it's their belief. It's the belief generally that free-for-all thing will disrupt the market. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of money to be made in the market by everyone, especially the guys in traditional art collecting markets. And as much as possible, they'd want to also control these. When I say they, I'm talking about people in the museums and the galleries, basically, of which I am one of them, as it were. And, they established protocols. And these protocols will be brought into the NFT field as everything else that happens in the world. However, at this point in time, it is vital that we, as Africans, key into that now and make the necessary name that we require, get the necessary publicity that we require, so that when this thing actually gets institutionalized, which it will, those who are on the playing field right now will be the Picassos of the NFT world, and the Michelangelos. I did mention Michelangelo is one of my favorites. So Michelangelos, and yeah, pretty much. But to think that it will continue as it were, that just about anyone can bring whatever they have, is not, I mean, that's not going to happen. Because what you find at the end of the day is like the forces of demand and supply kicks in after a while. When the collectors have collected the bit they have right now, they get to a point where they start to examine what they're collecting. They start to want to know why they're collecting. They start to want to know the reason behind the production of what they're collecting. These are parameters that actually will determine which artist or which art will be collected in future. But for now, because it's still relatively new, and everyone else, I mean, there's still such a hype about it right now. You might find people collecting just for the fun of it, but it will get to a point where they're going to start to query what they're collecting, and they're going to have to start to, require people to advise. We'd actually probably have Daliso advising,
Okay. Dr. Barber, thank you very much for your take on the issue.
I agree 100% with what Tunde said. The migration of institutions to NFTs is unavoidable. It's unavoidable, and they're gonna come and they're gonna, sort of regulate or how art is valued. And also going back to the first question that you asked, how do you value an NFT? I'm not very big on PFPs, so when I'm speaking from like an artist perspective, or somebody who sells art photographs, or just looking at one art collection, I think the value of these pieces of art as NFTs, I will go back to just the same thing that has been happening in Web 2, the traditional way, where there's value in that. You look at the artists themselves, how they came about producing a certain artwork, I don't know what kind of artwork they'll be creating in the future, the investment in the art themselves. I mean, maybe it could go back to the artist himself, him or herself, and the value that the artist creates for their art, and that may add to the value of the NFTs that they produce.
Mr. Kofi Obiobi, would you like to add your perspective to this issue?
Yeah, definitely. Thanks. So I think we are getting something of the main thing here, like in terms of NFTs. NFTs are not just artworks. That's what we have to understand. The technology that gave birth to NFT is the blockchain. Okay, and the blockchain is something that is like really revolutionary. Why do I say that? The blockchain technology gave people the opportunity to have evidence of what they own. In what way? So every information on the blockchain is shared across every node that is a computer of anyone who is on the blockchain to check and know whether they own this particular thing or item or not. Now, the NFTs come in the form of, they could be collectibles, they could be game items, they could be digital art. So art is just part of it. Art is not the main thing. It could be tickets, event tickets. It could be records of history, right? And so Bitcoin, as it were, is unprogrammable. I mean, they are trying to do something about it. But what it means is that when you compare that to the platform on which most NFTs run, which is the Ethereum blockchain, Ethereum is a programmable platform, or like blockchain, right? What it means is that there's what they call a smart contract and other things that are associated with the blockchain, which tells what the item that is on the blockchain should do. Okay, so on the blockchain, you have NFTs. Now, NFTs, like I said, are not just artworks. You see, you can put music on the blockchain, you can put art, you can sell tickets on the blockchain. Now, these are controlled by what they call decentralized applications, or dApps. And these decentralized applications are controlled by these smart contracts, which give evidence of ownership. So art is just one of it. Art is not the main thing. And so it is imperative on our part to look at the technology, not the art. Art is just one of it. And so the value in it is the technology behind it. And so some years ago, there was what they call Web 1. And Web 1 was when Netscape Navigator and all that were here. You can only probably sign in or watch. Probably couldn't sign in. You can just watch the internet and can't really do anything. And then there was Web 2 when, social media came, high five, MySpace and all that developed into Facebook and all these other social media platforms where you input your information and therefore the platform owns your data. That's why they push adverts in front of you. And as it were, technology grows. I was saying that earlier. And so we are in a place where Web 2 has improved to Web 3, which gives the opportunity to have blockchains running on this. And blockchains are just information in blocks. And because there's evidence that this is here and it's an open ledger, everybody can see it. And you are able to contain certain items, which includes art in there for people to verify who bought it, at what time, and who is it with now. It gave the opportunity to create all these digital assets. And so the beautiful part about being an artist and giving opportunities to artists on this, NFT bars is the fact that the smart contracts, which is attached to most of these blockchains, and Ethereum is one of the blockchains, there's also Tezos, there's Solana. What happens is the smart contract is you're able to write a smart contract and say, anyone that buys my artwork and resells it, 10% should come back to the seller, right? The owner. So sometimes I'm there and I sell an African mask. I'll be there at the end of the month, I receive some money. And it's because somebody resold my artwork. And that can never be happening in a traditional system. So those are some of the values. When you take music, most artists that stream music will wait for probably months or years to get their song streamed for them to make money. I mean, you distribute a song on, let's say, DistroKid, and then it goes to iTunes, Tidal, Spotify, all those websites. And over time, you stream and you make money. But with this, you can sell your music to your fan base. They'll buy your NFT, and then there's what they call an unlockable content, or kind of like a folder that you have access to only when you buy the music, and then it has all the songs in the album available to you. Now, this is the beautiful part. If the smart contract was written by you or even the platform, you can write a smart contract and say, any listener of my music can resell the album and also make money. So the value is with the technology, not the artwork, not the music, not the tickets, not all those applications that the blockchain technology that gave birth to NFTs is bringing or has brought. So it is the technology, not, the NFTs.
Okay.